sim racers from around the globe, honoring a revolutionary era of open-wheel racing. With a beast not easily tamed, roaring around legendary circuits at breakneck speed. When engineers and drivers push boundaries, sometimes too far. When heroes muscled roaring beasts wheel to wheel around the hallowed grounds. A time when the only driver aids were his 2 feet. Perfect combination of man, machine, and speed. Experience the competition and the glory of the early 80s IndyCar action. The Lionheart Retro Series, presented by Sim Experience, starts now.
The Lionheart Retro Series has returned for the first time in 5 years for a showdown on the streets of Long Beach. Coming off a victory at the home of British motorsport, Mike Razmasno's time is running out to close the 63-point gap to Matt Taylor in the title fight. But will the streets be kind to our championship rivals, or will there be more thrills and spills as we write the final chapters of the 2021 campaign? This is Long Beach, and this is the HyperX Grand Prix of Long Beach. Hello and welcome back to RaceSpotTV and coverage of the 2021 Lionheart Retro Series. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be joined by the Lionheart setup guru Andrew Kinsella, with TV cameras brought to us by Dougie Beard. Reminder that you can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to RaceSpot.tv/Indy. Follow your favorite team and drivers courtesy of our partners at ATVO. Let's dive straight into our HyperX pre-race show because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders. Andrew, it was a great race in Silverstone. So much excitement in a race where, for the first time, we got to see what these Lotus 79s in the hands of our Lionheart Retro Series drivers can do at that historic racetrack. But now, on the streets of Long Beach, it's a track known for chaos. It's a track where, really, it's going to be about attrition. It's a Royal Rumble. Who can survive to the end? Who will emerge on top for only the second time in series history?
Arjuna, it was a thrilling race across the pond in Silverstone. There was so much going on throughout that entire race. And it was just a battle to the end that we saw there. But we are now back in the United States of America, back on the West Coast at Long Beach, and this challenge could not be more different than the drivers face at Silverstone, where that was a fast-flowing circuit. We are now on the street courses around Long Beach, and it is going to be a bumpy, knockdown, drag-out fight for these drivers to get through tonight, and I can't wait to see what these drivers make of this track.
It is also one of 2 races in the month, in the next month or so, that will be here in the Golden State. We will have a trip to America's National Park of Speed, and just a week's time, it's back-to-back races in the Lionheart Retro Series. But of course, that double points finale at the Auto Club Speedway, sure to have plenty of championship intrigue. Here's a look then at your championship standings, brought to you by the Sim Experience AccuForce Pro V2. Matt Taylor, with some consistent performances in the last couple of months, has managed to build up a 63-point advantage. But Mike Razmas, has managed to reclaim second spot. He used to lead the championship a couple of months back before we went road race on a stretch of oval races when we were racing in Sonoma. The road race that Razmas won to build himself up into this position. Morgan has looked good as well. 3 drivers still in with a mathematical chance of the championship. Chris Fowler, David Sirron, Michael O'Brien, Chris Reagan, all having a really fun fight for 4th in the championship as well. We've seen some great pace from David Sirron, not just on the road courses where we thought his bread and butter would be coming into the season. He has emerged as a contender on the ovals as well. Here's a look at your rookie standings, and it's only fair to say that if Matt Taylor's leading the driver standings, he's also leading these rookie standings presented by Butt Kicker. And Taylor's in an interesting spot, Andrew, given that he is fighting multiple fronts in this Lionheart Lionheart sanctioning body, he's also competing for a Speedway title. Yes, his title hopes took a bit of a dent last time they went racing in the DW12, but he knows with next week being frenetic, there are 3 different Lionheart races that Taylor is going to be competing in. He needs some momentum to come here today.
Yeah, we talked to Matt Taylor, and he said he was taking it 1 race at a time, but the real crunch time for Matt Taylor, as you said, really begins now. We have a race tonight, we have a race Monday, a race Wednesday, and a race next Thursday as well. So as you say, Matt Taylor is going to be very busy for the next week, and it is going to be very important for him that he has all of those races go well as he competes on those various fronts, as you mentioned. As you said, he's run away with this rookie title, but I'm looking at the rest of that rookie fight, Arjuna, and it has been very close throughout the top 10, and we've got some very serious drivers who are competing for the rest of the spots there as well.
Always great to see Nick de Groot. He's back in action today. He's been in and out with his responsibilities as a motorsports.com editor. Great to have him out on track, not just in the Lotus 79, but of course the DW12 as well. Here's a look at the team standings where, because of the consistency of Matt Taylor, Aaron Morgan, and Michael O'Brien, they have waltzed away in these team standings presented by HyperX. Lavoie Motorsports, with their increasing pace and increasing consistency on the ovals, have managed to leapfrog AeroX Racing, but this is when we expect the Canadian team to really build things up, because they have 2 road races left to go heading into that double points finale, Andrew. I'm really interested to see for David Sirois, for Alex Gouillon. I don't think we've got Jean-Francois Matt in attendance today, so for those 2 drivers, it's going to be a crucial race.
Absolutely. It'll be very important. It'll be definitely a building block for next season. Lavoie Motorsports, particularly in the last half of this year, has really come on strong. David Sirois in particular has really impressed, not just on the road courses where we knew he was strong, but he's really started to get a hang of these oval tracks, and I expect him to lead the Lavoie Motorsports charge looking ahead towards next year as well, because he has definitely improved on those ovals and has done a really great job throughout this entire year, really.
And so that's a rundown top to bottom of your 3 major championships. Let's talk a little bit then about the series details presented by Minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz. And don't forget to use the promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. 5th year of the Lionheart Retro Series in the 7th year of the Lionheart Racing Series, campaigning a classic Lotus 79, not really known for its oval racing pedigree, but it has delivered some incredible shows. Just think back to our Indy 250 4 wide at the line. Drivers fighting for their share of $7,000 in cash and prizes, with a triple crown that will lead to Auto Club. All roads lead to our season finale, where double points, again crucial, are on the line. But let's talk a little bit more about today, Andrew. It's a return to the streets of Long Beach for the first time since the inaugural Retro Series campaign. It was a, I don't want to say calm race, because there were... It's Long Beach. It's never a calm race, but only 2 lead changes. I think that really emphasizes how difficult it is to make passes happen here, given you are balancing risk versus reward, given how close you get to the wall through every single corner on this track.
Absolutely. What you saw last week at Silverstone was that it was difficult to pass, but for a different reason. It was because the corners were so flowing, but you had so much runoff. Here you have absolutely no margin for error, particularly in that fountain section. Turns 2, 3, 4, and 5. The walls are so close, the road falls away from you and almost propels you towards those walls. And it really is the case that this track is so difficult, not only just to pass on, but to drive in general. It's a real challenge for these drivers, and it's one of those races that is just going to, the cream is going to rise to the top, and I expect this to be a duel between all of our championship hopefuls here today.
They were in the top 3, all 3 of our championship competitors in practice. Just a reminder as well, Jason Galvin, our defending race winner, but again, he's not in action. We will have a first-time winner here in Long Beach, margin of victory when we came here back in Season 1. just over half a second. Pretty incredible when you think about that. Here's a look, though, at the track, and you get an indication of where we are. We're on the coast of California, nestled in the heart of Long Beach. Plenty of interesting sights around this facility. Didn't start off that way, it should be noted. When Formula One first came to Long Beach for their Grand Prix, very much a very different sort of an environment. The track has grown, the environment, the community around it has grown as well, and you see some iconic moments. The hairpin, so many chaotic moments there. The fountain, we were just watching a practice start during the practice session, Andrew, when a couple of cars had some interesting lines through that section.
Yeah, as you said, this is really a case in point of what a race can do for a city. It's really elevated the entire city and the entire area of Long Beach, and they've rallied around this race and made it the icon that it is here in North America. Some have even called it the Monaco of North America or of the United States, and it's really true. Some truly picturesque sights, and that fountain section, it's an interesting beast to tame. It's a quick left, quick right. The car is dancing on its tires on the edge of adhesion, even though you're only going 50, 60 miles an hour through there. It seems so much quicker than that when you're going through, and it's so easy to lose the car there. We saw it in practice, and we will see it probably in the race as well, but it is so much fun to drive through there as well, Arjuna. I can't wait to see how these drivers tackle it. And
so qualifying is underway. Drivers get the track to themselves. 4 flying laps with a 10-minute time window to get those laps in. Do you decide to burn off the fuel, do some interesting things? Of course, bias ply tires. You're not going to see drivers like we see in the IndyCar series come down onto pit road, get a fresh set of boots on their car, and try and go even quicker in the closing stages. With just over 4 minutes left on the clock, David Sirott back on top. The first time he'll be on pole if he can hold on a road course in his fledgling Lionheart Retro Series campaign, but just 3 thousandths separates him from Aaron Morgan. Michael O'Brien rolling himself out onto track right now, as you can see. Did decide to come down to pit road, so that's an interesting call. Talk to us a little bit, though, about the setup today, Andrew. As the setup guru for the Lionheart Retro Series, what are the drivers going to be fighting with here today?
Yeah, so this is definitely an interesting setup here. Because it's so bumpy, the car is actually fairly far off the ground here. So one of the things that these drivers will be combating a little bit today is just the shifting balance. Because the car has to be so high up above the ground, the balance shifts a fair bit, especially over the bumps and under braking in particular. The balance shifts fairly far forward, so there are a few tricks that I've employed to try and make the car handle a little bit better under braking, but at the same time, it's going to be important for these drivers to keep the car under control, both under braking and just off throttle, because it will be a little bit nervous for them. So it's really going to be a driver's track here today, as we're on board now with Matt Taylor, and he's down in 7th place, and this is not what Matt Taylor was hoping for with only 2 minutes and 50 seconds left to go in qualifying.
He's also got some damage to the left front of his front wing, so that's not going to be ideal. I tell you what, though, let's ride around for a lap here with Michael O'Brien, who's coming across the start line to start a flying lap. Throw yourself across the start-finish line. Maximum commitment, maximum reward. That's the motto of this track, especially in qualifying trim. Find your braking spot in towards turn number 1. Use that curb on the inside to roll yourself to the outside. Into the fountain, less is more. Use the inside to make sure you avoid clipping the wall on the outside, because it cuts in. Now it's a double right-hand complex. First part is cambered in. Second part, very slightly off camber. Very easy to get on the power and light up the rear tires and spin yourself around. In towards turn 6 as a very slight downhill braking zone. You can hear O'Brien using the engine to slow him down and rolling his momentum all the way to the outside of the corner, coming into the crucial turn 8. You can see how much of the corner you cut there, because you want to get as close to the wall on the left-hand side as you can, because down East Seaside Way, good passing opportunity, but a place that you can lose plenty of time as well. O'Brien brakes at the 200 on the left-hand side, working his way into the final couple of corners, sweeping through turn 10. Set yourself up on the left-hand side for the hairpin. Will you go one hand off the wheel? The driver in the sim did. We'll wonder if Michael O'Brien does out of the final corner, nicely onto the power. Currently sits in 5th. What's the time going to be for O'Brien as he crosses the start-finish line? It's a 1:12.351. It is pole position for the 45 car.
Very nice lap from Michael O'Brien, and you saw just how close he came to the wall through that fountain section. there's a number of places where the wall can come back and bite you if you misjudge that even a little bit. And that onboard was just a great example of how close you have to come to make it go that quickly.
Can Taylor improve? Still has that damage to the left side of the front wing. Across the line, it's a 12.955. No improvement for the championship leader. He looks like the bestial start is back in 5th. Only one car left out on track with 45 seconds left on the clock. It is David Sirois, currently just under 2/10 off the pole. Doesn't look like this is going to be a fast lap, and he's practicing the pit entry, which is probably not a bad idea, Andrew, because you can see there it juts out very violently as you cut down onto the pit lane. Good idea to get some practice in.
Absolutely. It's a very tricky pit in. You have to basically change 3 or 4 lanes, what you would normally do in your street car, in a matter of only a few feet. So it's definitely one of the trickier pit-ins on this circuit, and something that should be practiced, and it's good that David Sirois is getting that in right now.
Well, qualifying is going to roll to a close. Let's go trackside then here on the streets of Long Beach. We'll take a look at our starting grid for the HyperX Grand Prix of Long Beach. And so here's a look at your butt kicker starting grid. It's Michael O'Brien's 5th career Retro Series pole position, who'll be alongside his Avatar Auto Racing teammate, Aaron Morgan. Mike Razmas sits then back in 3rd with one of his main championship rivals to his right-hand side in front, and behind him as well. Alongside will be David Sirois, always quick and threatening on the road courses. Championship leader starts back in 5th position alongside Chris Reagan in the purple and silver number 19 machine for Elite West Motorsports. Richie Hearn, plenty of open wheel experience for him. He'll be lining up back in 7th spot alongside Chris Fowler. Alex Guyon, Paul Jenkins share row number 5 with Ariel Alanis and Robert Mikes just missing out on a top 10 starting position. The teal numbers 34 lines up alongside Ricky Harding on row 7 with Nick DeGroot and Craig Forsyth. The final cars to set qualifying lap times, 15th and 16th positions. David Rodriguez has an end-of-line penalty after some contact at Silverstone that will drop him to the tail end of the grid. Lionel Callisto, another car not setting a qualifying lap time. And series organizer Jordan Zaldo, who said that he's just here for a Sunday drive in effect, lining up at the tail end of the field looking to survive the chaos, the carnage here on the streets of Long Beach. Well, we are ready to go. This is going to be a thriller. We have 64 laps on the board, 2 pit stops expected from all of the drivers. Not much time for them to get their tires up to temperature and pressure. Not much time either for us to work through our featured onboards for today's event. First off, it's Chris Reagan with the HyperX onboard. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. Richie Hearn has the Sim Experience on board, makers of the AccuForce Pro V2 direct drive steering system. For more information, visit simexperience.com. Ricky Hardin has the Graphics Esports on board, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graphicsesports.com to learn more. 64 laps on the docket, but we are ready to race in Long Beach. Michael O'Brien gets the green flag out. We are racing in the HyperX Grand Prix of Long Beach, storming themselves down into the left-hander that will sweep them into the fountain section. Erasmus already defensive as Taylor looks to cover off Richie Hearn side by side for 3rd position. Looks like a little bit of contact there potentially as David Sirois has gotten the jump on Razmas, and Razmas is around. Contact with Reagan. He'll be side by side with Chris Fowler coming through the fountain. Other than that one bit of contact, it looks like everyone through there safely. Fowler might have been collected in some of that contact though.
Looks like Reagan actually might have just lost it coming out of turn 5. And there's a big thing.
Absolute chaos. You can see we were wondering if there was going to be a track blocker. Reagan has been mixed up in something. Fowler and Jenkins immediately have taken the tow back to pit road, and that's kind of what you expect here at Long Beach. Chaos and carnage on the start.
It was a little bit of a chaotic start, and that was exactly what Mike Rasmus couldn't afford, was to get involved in something in that fountain section, and unfortunately it looks like Chris Reagan just got into the back of him, and that is going to put a big damper on his championship hopes, unfortunately.
Oh, and Matt Taylor is up and over.
Oh, my word!
The championship leader, championship implications. What is going on the streets of Long Beach? Lap 1 in the books. O'Brien, Morgan, and Sirois scampering away from the field. Razmas and Taylor being mixed up in incidents. It should be noted, Razmas has recovered. He's still running in 4th, but almost 5 seconds off the race leader.
absolutely unbelievable here from Matt Taylor. I can hardly describe what just happened here on this start. It looks like Matt Taylor just got in too deep in the turn at the end of the back straight, and he just flipped over after hitting the barriers. But my word, Arjuna, unbelievable stuff here in terms of the championship. And I do think that Taylor is going to be able to get back going again, because he doesn't seem to have too much damage, but he's going to have to tow because he was upside down, and it is going to be at least a couple of laps down for Matt Taylor, I think, after the end of this.
We'll get a replay in a few moments, but I want to take a look first at you don't get the great shot there. You're not going to get the great shot there either. Let's ride on board with Alex Guyon. He'll try and close on Razmas. There is significant rear wing damage to Razmas's car. I have to assume that came as a result of contact with Chris Fowler. It's going to make his life very difficult, but what he does need to realize right now is he's got potential to close the championship gap in front of him. He's got to endure here on the streets of Long Beach. Let's go ahead then and work our way through what happened on the start. Let's begin by trying to pick up what happened between Razmas and Reagan. So working into the corner, Razmas just opens the lane. Reagan slots down the inside. What happens to Fowler? Fowler's just an innocent bystander. He gets spun around into the wall and then collected by Paul Jenkins. So that's what happened between those two cars. But watch what happens to Chris Reagan here. Oh, it's contact with Taylor. So Taylor's already mixed up in it, as I think that's Alex Guyon in the 7. Oh, sorry, that's Robert Mikes in the 17. That then gets tagged by Ricky Harding in the 7.
Absolute chaos there, Arjuna. So there are a number of things to unpack here for this. First of all, I think that Chris Reagan was just a little bit too anxious through that fountain section at the beginning of this race here. You said that Rasmus opened the door, but that door was never really going to be open for anything more than a split second, and I think Reagan should have known a little bit better than that. Paul Jenkins obviously got some damage there, but here, let's ride on board with Chris Reagan, and you can just see that these two are fighting in front of him, and he goes in too deep, and he should have been able to back out there, I think, a little bit, Arjuna. I do agree with you. It didn't need to happen there, and after that was the trigger that sort of had the domino effect. I think probably Reagan had a little bit of damage, and then that caused Matt Taylor to get into him. We saw a few people's having some sympathy spins, but really that all kicked off with Reagan just getting in a little too deep into that fountain section. And so now let's stick with Matt Taylor, who you can see already significant steering damage already. Front wing once more, like we saw in qualifying, in effect needs a change. What's going to happen here? Is it contact from behind, or is it? There's no contact. It's just that he gets to the end and he has no brakes and no steering. He just doesn't have the ability to turn the car properly, goes into the wall, straight into the tire barrier. And unfortunately, the iRacing physics just puts him on his lid there. But it was just a case of he needed to take it a little bit easier through there, see if he could possibly get that repaired. But once he hit that barrier the second time, there's no repairing that. Absolutely. I think very difficult for Taylor to have avoided the initial incident with Reagan and then that second bit of contact. I think that's day done for Taylor. Indeed, yes, he is. He's already headed back to the garage and called it quits in effect. So we'll have to see how it plays out with the drop weeks, because there are drop weeks that get factored into the equation here. Not all of the 18 rounds get counted to the points totals, as now Richie Hearn attacks Mike Razmas with that rear wing damage. It's so significant. It's hard to believe that he hasn't come down into the pits just yet, but what you have to assume is that he's just trying to cycle to that first pit window out here in the track. Remember, fuel window anywhere from 25 to 26 laps. So really what you want to try and do is get to lap 14 and come in and minimize the pain from there. Well, but what you also have to realize, Arjuna, is that with this Lotus 79, that rear wing is an integral part of the car, so I'm not actually sure that he will be able to get that repaired, as we see Richie Hearn with a nice clean move on Mike Rasmus. I think for Mike Rasmus right now, it is all about damage mitigation. What he has to do is he has to figure out how his car is handling and make sure that he can get to the end of this race, because this is a big opportunity, both for Aaron Morgan and Mike Rasmus. But if he can stay up in that top 5 for the remainder of this race and figure out how to make that car work, regardless of whether his damage gets repaired, that's the most important thing for Mike Rasmus right now.
I didn't even think about the possibility that the rear wing isn't replaceable. We'll wait and see as Lionel Kalisto is going to have a think about a lunge to the inside. Trevor Malone covers him off nicely. Almost smacks down the wall coming into the fountain section as well. We're only on lap 6. Healthy dose of oversteer there as Kalisto gets on the power. Remember, Kalisto has had to work his way up through the field and through the carnage. +9 so far. David Rodriguez just behind, 4/10. The gap between 9th and 10th positions, another car that's worked his way up and through the chaos. Let's get the update on how the points will shake up. It's not a big damage, and that's because, of course, the drop weeks will come into effect, but also the fact that we've got a slightly smaller field, Andrew, than normal, which means that Taylor, even if he doesn't get back on track, will be in 16th spot, gives him 29 points as Kalisto gets on through. Rodriguez is going to try and follow into the penultimate couple of corners, but Malone covers him off.
Yeah, it's definitely not as costly as it could be for Matt Taylor. Fortunately, he has had a number of solid results, even beyond just what he had to in terms of drop week. So that is really a stroke of good fortune for Matt Taylor. Unfortunately, it will end up probably burning one of his drop weeks here. But definitely the smaller field and the nice level of drop weeks should make this at least a bearable result for Matt Taylor. I know that he'll be extremely frustrated with what happened on that first lap, because this is definitely not what he wanted to have happen this early in the race. But at the same time, it could have been a lot worse, so he's got to probably compose himself just a little bit, maybe take a little bit of time tonight, and then move on, because as we mentioned off the top of this, he's got a lot of racing here to do in this next week.
Rodriguez gets past Malone, heading downhill into turn 6. We did see Taylor has rejoined into the race and tried to roll that car back out onto track, but it's taken already a couple of resets onto pit road. He's left the box, towed himself back, left the box, towed himself back. I wonder if that's, in effect, day done. That car surely has too much damage at this point in time. Meanwhile, out front, O'Brien stretching his legs, 1.5 seconds clear. David Sirwa now the man on the charge, hunting down Aaron Morgan. These cars need to be careful because Richie Hearn, currently one of the fastest cars on track. In fact, Richie Hearn has the fastest lap of the race with a 1:12.443. He's only 3 seconds off. He's managed to claw back that gap by 7/10 of a second since getting past, I should say, Mike Razmas.
Yeah, really solid drive from Richie Hearn so far. He's been doing a great job. He obviously had that really nice overtake of the wounded car of Mike Rasmus, but he's showing that he really has some pace here today. And it's so nice to see Richie Hearn having a solid run in this car, because we've seen a number of times so far this year he's had some really solid pace, but he just hasn't been able to have the results. Today, I think, is a really good opportunity for Richie to get in a good result here in this retro series, where he's done so well a number of times, I think.
I just think back to his pole position at Phillip Island earlier this year. Didn't go well for him after that. We won't talk about it too much, but at least he showed that he's got the one-lap speed, the raw potential to very much mix it up at the front of these road races. Of course, it's split between the roads and the ovals over the course of 18 calendar rounds. Do need to be quick on both if you want to have a chance of fighting for the overall championship. The Lotus 79 has a bit of an interesting history here at Long Beach. Only actually raced here once in 1979 when Mario Andretti managed to bring that car home in fourth. Of course, this was in the era when reliability wasn't bulletproof, when you didn't expect all the cars in your field to actually finish a race, let alone finish on the lead lap. His teammate Carlos Reutemann retired, as did Hector Raback in the Team Raback Lotus 79. 33% of the Lotus 79s therefore finished that one. It is a fun car to wheel around, and I think this would be one where it really rewards the drivers who have put in the time to understand what the tire is doing, because we mentioned it last time at Silverstone, Andrew. There was a tire update a couple of weeks ago with the iRacing build that really changed how this car behaves on the road courses. And so last time was the first opportunity that we saw these drivers get to grips with the new tire construction. This is their second opportunity, but a very different challenge to Silverstone.
Absolutely. There's a lot more low-speed corners here, so off-the-corner grip is going to be much more important here. And as you mentioned, this car, it's a lot of fun to drive, and the best way that I can describe it is that it speaks to you as you're getting on and off the throttle. It's so lively, but at the same time, it's one of those cars where you just feel connected to it. And if you're a driver that can translate what the car is telling you to your inputs, you'll have a lot of success with this. And I think that's what we're seeing up at the front here with Michael O'Brien, with Aaron Morgan, and some of these other drivers, is that they're just keeping the car nice and steady. There's some little moments just here and there, but at the same time, they're just respecting the car, let it do what it needs to do, and they're doing a real good job at the front.
There is passing up and down through the field. Rodriguez has got past Ariel Alanis. Chris Reagan has now slotted his way past Craig Forsyth on the recovery drive for the number 19 machine. George Anzaldo, I think, had a bit of a moment coming through the final corner and has lost a spot to the heavily damaged number 17 of Robert Mikes. Lap 11 right now as O'Brien is across the line. So only a couple of laps away, I think, from seeing the likes of Razmas onto pit lane, because he's doing 1:13 once right now. Richie Hearn in front of him, a 1:12.654. Maybe we'll wait and see. I'm really hoping that he's going to be able to get that rear wing replaced. Here we go. Trevor Malone slide through the field continues after working his way through, picking his way apart through the chaos early. Now drops another position. Reagan back to the top 10.
Yeah, and it's been a good recovery drive from Chris Reagan so far. Obviously, there was the mistakes of lap 1, but he's managed to put them behind him so far. He does have a little bit of damage, but it's not letting him slow him down too much at this point. But going back to Mike Rasmus, it'll be interesting to see what he does here, because on the one hand, it may be worth the risk for him to come down pit road and see if he can get some of the damage repaired, but at the same time, this car really comes alive on the lower fuel. So by coming in early, you're essentially cutting out some of the time that you're going to spend on low fuel in this race. So it'll be interesting to see what Rasmus's call here is going to be in the next few laps, because it really will be a trade-off for him. If he thinks that he can get it fixed, it might be worth it, but at the same time, it's going to be a tough call, I think.
And remember, of course, it's bias ply tires, right? So you're not going to be changing tires at all through this race. If anything, the tires get quicker over the course of the 64 laps of action. So very much the case that you're limited in your stop time on fuel. So do need to factor that in as getting the rear end out and almost into the tire bundles. Richie Hearn now 2.3 seconds behind David Sirois, as Hearn, who's had persistent network issues, continues to blink in and out of existence here in Long Beach. He's been mentioning that maybe he wants to get Starlink up in his setup. I can tell you that, having now worked with someone on a broadcast that had Starlink, it's not as bulletproof as he would want, but it's definitely going to be a slight upgrade as to what he's got right now. Richie Hearn now 2 seconds behind David Sirois as he really closes that gap hand over fist, really wringing the neck of the Lotus 79. Meanwhile, Michael O'Brien 2 seconds clear. And this is where, if you're in a rhythm, Andrew, this is a track which really rewards you.
Absolutely. It's definitely a rhythm track. You can get into such a nice rhythm because so many of the corners, Arjuna, are really similar. They have slightly different characteristics that make them just interesting enough to keep your attention, but at the same time, it's a very familiar feeling coming into and exiting so many of these corners, and you can just get into a nice rhythm. The straightaways are just long enough to really accelerate, have a nice braking zone, get off, or get into the corner and then get off the corner and accelerate again. So it's one of those tracks where if you can get on your own like Michael O'Brien has, you can really get into a solid rhythm. And the important thing is just to maintain that rhythm going forward, because we do have a long race in front of us. We are 13 laps in already, but at the same time, we still have 51 laps still to go.
Yeah, and we said it was risk versus reward. How your mental focus is going to shape up over the course of this race as well. I remember doing some races on my own here at Long Beach and being drenched in sweat as Michael O'Brien punches in the fastest lap of the race, a 12.443. So that indication that the fuel is burning off and cars are going quicker and quicker. David Rodriguez in the green RSR Esports machine hunting down Lionel Calisto. Two drivers that, of course, did not put in qualifying lap time, started from the tail end of the field. Rodriguez with an end-of-line penalty to be served after contact in Silverstone. So you can have a look to the inside. He shows his nose, but just a little bit too far back, 22 seconds behind the race leader. But I tell you what, after starting outside of the top 15, top 5 is maybe still on the cards if attrition works their way.
Absolutely. This is not the type of race where you can be too discouraged by starting back in the field, especially once you've successfully navigated your way through those first few laps of the race. That's really where you know that you're going to make up a whole bunch of time. But at the same time, this car will change a fair bit as the tires go off. You mentioned a number of times that it does get faster as the tires go off, but at the same time, it also gets much more lively as well. So it's very, very likely that, especially if you're a guy like Rodriguez or Callisto, that you're going to see a few more drivers make some mistakes in front of you. So your main mission at this point is just to try and put yourself in the right position to capitalize on those mistakes. And I think that so far, so good for both Callisto and Rodriguez.
Behind them, Ariel Alanis now trying to fend off the advances of Chris Reagan as they work themselves across the start-finish line to put lap 14 behind them. Reagan pops himself out of the draft, looks to the inside, heading down into turn number 1. I don't think Alanis is going to fight this one too hard, and indeed lets him on through. Next car that might try and attack the rear end of the 25 would be Trevor Malone in the teal number 34. Things have very much calmed down from the opening lap of the race when it was a helter-skelter opening to the third to final chapter in our 2021 season. Looking forward as well, since things are slowing down here, really excited about Road America, Andrew. We've seen some great races both in Full Metal Motorsport, but even thinking back to earlier, just a couple of weeks ago when the Lionheart IndyCar Series went there, some fantastic racing.
Absolutely. Road America is one of those tracks that you can't help but have a good race there, it seems like. The straights are so long and the corners just invite passing in so many different places that it's almost impossible to have a bad race there. Basically, if you take the flowing fast nature of Silverstone and then the tight corners of Long Beach and put them onto one track, that in essence is Road America, where you have the hard braking zone that's at the end of these really, really long, fast straights, and the passing opportunities abound, and it really creates just a fascinating track and a wonderful track to drive and a fabulous track to watch racing at.
I do like the way you've described it. You can, it's a track which has got its own charms, but it is one that is relatively simple as well. I don't want to undermine the challenge of Road America, but compare it to this, or compare it to Silverstone, it is very much, I don't think, as challenging. You've got a lot of 90-degree corners, which I think make things a little easier. Kind of like what you're talking about with this track, Andrew, where the corners are pretty similar to one another. It's kind of similar at Road America as well.
Yeah, but at the same time, the charm about Road America is that no two braking zones are really alike. You're always braking either uphill or slightly downhill or slightly off camber, and it really presents a huge challenge for the drivers. You don't necessarily get the same feeling of just how challenging it is just from broadcasting it, but when you're racing it, you really understand the challenge of just trying to be on the limit at Road America. It's so much fun. And the other thing about Road America that's so nice is that you really feel like you're going somewhere over the course of a full lap. Because it's so big, because it's so fast and so long, you feel like almost every corner that you arrive at, it's a destination. It's this event that you're arriving at. You're jumping on the brakes as hard as you can, getting around the corner and firing yourself back up off the next straight. And it's this... It's almost a magical combination that I don't think can ever really be duplicated. Certainly not with the modern safety standards that tracks are designed to now. But it's a fabulous track to drive, and it's one of my favorites on the circuit, as you can probably tell. I
don't want to think about what it would take to make Road America an FIA Grade 1 circuit, because it would just remove all the natural charm that you do have at the facility. So I know what you mean, and I very much agree with you. It's one of those tracks which... built, post-World War II in the late 1940s, initially public roads that then racing had to go somewhere, so it went to a circuit that they carved into the backyards of Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Really a fantastic facility. fight between 3 cars for 13th on back. Robert Mikes with that significantly damaged car, still trying to fight with George Anzaldo and Nick de Groot. I'm not sure how that number 17 is handling. Clearly not very well as he gets a little bit squirrely getting the power down.
Yeah, it's definitely been an adventure for Bobby Mikes so far, but I think George Anzaldo is really starting to feel the heat a little bit here from Nick de Groot. De Groot didn't have the best of starts, but here we see it looking down the inside for George Anzaldo, but Bob Mikas really sails it in there, and he maintains. So nice move there from Robert Mikas, and I think Anzaldo's got to be feeling a little bit of heat from Nick de Groot here right now, Arjuna. He's closed up on this battle, and I think that Nick de Groot, even though he does have a little bit of damage, is going to factor into this battle very, very soon, if he isn't already, in terms of trying to get by George in the next few laps.
Doesn't look like too much damage on the number 89 factory-backed car. Maybe a little bit of front-wing damage that you can see on the left-hand side of the car, but nothing compared to what the number 17 at the front of this train is dealing with. Richie Hearn last time around goes even faster. It's a 1:12.392. Reeled in the gap to the cars in front by 0.4 of a second. He's now almost under that 1 second barrier where the draft will start to help him. What's it like here, Andrew, with the draft versus the dirty air? How much is Richie Hearn going to be feeling it? Because there's not too many high-speed corners, but I'm sure that still unsettles you just that little bit more than you need.
It does unsettle you, especially in this car. Really where you need the downforce the most is through the penultimate corner just before the hairpin, and then through that fountain complex. It's very important to have that downforce on your car, and you notice it when it's not there. Through the 90 degrees corners, it's not as important, although it is still important, especially coming onto the backstretch through turn 8, which is another very important place for trying to set up these passes. So it is a balancing act. I do think that it is something that you can overcome. You can overcome being in dirty air, but it does hold you up, and it does prevent you from taking necessarily the optimal line through some of these corners as well.
And as we ride on board with Richie Hearn once again, you can see front left of his wing a little bit bumped in. Might not be affecting him too much, but seems to be a telltale marker of what we're seeing. Multiple cars with that same little bit of contact as, George Anzaldo, has he had another off through the final corner? Coming into the pit stop window as well. Let's take a look at what happened in towards the hairpin. Doesn't look like Nick de Groot is too close behind, so sends it into the braking zone, and it's just going to be on the throttle, isn't it? Yes. Can he keep it out of the wall? No, it does a good job there.
Yep, nice job keeping it between the two walls. It looks like he just spooled up the tires just a little bit too much, got on the gas a little bit too soon. The car wasn't really straight when he got back to the throttle, and it just went around on him. These rear tires are it's so easy to do that. The differential on these is fairly rudimentary, and the rear tires are, as you can see, much bigger than the front, and they provide a lot of grip. So if you get it slightly wrong through that final hairpin, especially where you're going so low into the rev range, and then if you hit the rev range at the wrong point, it'll just spin the car around like you saw with George Anzaldo. So very easy to do, and fortunately for him, no harm, no foul, and he should be able to catch back up to Bobby Mikes and Nick de Groot as well. Meanwhile,
out front, gap for the lead down to 1.6. Morgan and David Sirois put in identical lap times, 1:12.484 last time around. Crazy to think about the way that Richie Hearn had closed up the gap, and then Morgan and Sirois see him coming, get the power down. Robert Mikes has come down onto pit road a little bit early, but given the extent of the damage, will be the first indication that we get as to how much of the damage that these cars are going to be able to get repaired. Of course, that's crucial for Mike Razmas, who's now 13 seconds off the race lead. Still about 5 in front of Alex Guyon, but very much damage limitation for the 68 car that came into this one. Second place in the points, and as we look at the live championship standings, you can see Morgan in front of Razmas by 1 single point. Now this does factor in our drop week, so it does give us a better indication, but of course with 2 races left to go, who knows what the drops will look like once we get to Fontana midway through December to round out not just the Lionheart Retro Series campaign, but the entire calendar in 2021 for the Lionheart Racing Series. Chris Fowler, who was up in third, I should say up in fourth, given that there are 3 title hunters. Well, just bad luck, more bad luck. He's had that basically in every single of our 3 Lionheart sanctioned competitions. Now drops behind David Sirois and Michael O'Brien in the battle for 4th in the standings. Not much he could do on the start there, given that Razmas was, bumped around and then rejoining back and really nowhere for Fowler to go. Too wide through the fountain is always a scary proposition.
Yeah, the black cloud of bad luck that has been over top of Chris Fowler's season has just not gone away this entire year, and it's been unfortunate because he has really shown a lot of speed and a lot of consistency when he hasn't been having that bad luck. So it was an unfortunate end to Fowler's day, an unfortunate end to a number of drivers' days so far, but we do still have a really good race here at the front of this field with 4 drivers still well within striking distance. And you did mention that some of these drivers have been responding, and one of the things that is nice about the Lotus 79 and this track in particular is that because it does change a fair bit as the fuel gets lighter, you'll see drivers getting faster and getting slower at different stages of the run. So like Aaron Morgan, he might like a little bit of a freer car, a little bit more lively car, so you're seeing him start to close back up just a little bit on Michael O'Brien. But then the next few laps, if Michael O'Brien takes care of his tires just a little bit, he's going to stretch it back out just that little bit. So it's going to be really interesting to watch these front 4 as the race unfolds, how they handle the car going off as the run goes on. Well, not off, but how the handling of the car changes as the run goes on.
Yeah, hopefully they don't go off into the wall. That's definitely not what we want to see. 1 lap away from the pit stop window opening, so not far away. Let's see who blinks first. Will it be maybe Michael O'Brien, who's been out front, maybe not doing too much fuel saving? Maybe David Sirois has been able to do some fuel saving when he was tucked up behind Morgan earlier on in the run. He's now 1.3 behind. Looks factory fresh for Aaron Morgan. What does it look like for the car in front of him? Similarly clean, especially that front wing. That's the place that I'm looking out for. Both Sirois and Richie Hearn appear to have a little bit of front left damage on the wing. Probably not hurting them too much, but wonder if it might cost them some time in the pit. Does look as though, by the way, Robert Mikes has retired as, early pit stop. David Sirois pulls his car down onto pit road.
Very interesting strategy from David Sirois. He comes down just a little bit early, and I'm not sure whether this is going to be playing out for him the way he quite wants it to, because as we've mentioned a number of times, because of these bias ply tires, it does afford them the fastest laps at the end of the run. So he's going to have to come out of the pit stop here and really make sure that he gets on this as fast as he can and make sure that he limits any damage that can possibly happen on these next few laps as the tires come back up to temp here, Arjuna.
And even more crucially, does he have clean air? Ariel Alanis will be the next car to come across the line. There is Alanis, right side of the shot. David Sirois has managed to find a pocket of clean air. Not going to have the best of pace necessarily, but will minimize the damage. Would have been a lot worse if he had got stuck behind the number 25 car. Meanwhile, through the final corner, looks like
we do have some traffic for our leaders, it looks like.
And is going to be coming onto pit road along with the leader. So George Anzaldo pits with Michael O'Brien. That Richie Hearn, Richie Hearn has also peeled his way off onto the lane as well. So now we get to see what the time is going to be. It was 8.7 seconds stationary for Sirois. My assumption would be it might be a little bit longer for O'Brien, given that he would have emptied his tank just that little bit more.
It'll be a little bit longer, but not too much, I would say. No more than 9.2, 9.3 would be what I would expect here. I think what's really going to be interesting here, Arjuna, is whether Aaron Morgan can get by the drivers here, as Michael O'Brien actually has a really, really strong pit stop there in 8.3 seconds. So Aaron Morgan is really going to have to hustle if he's going to get by by Michael O'Brien on this overcut.
And there's our answer. 9.2 stationary for Razmas still. that crumpled in rear wing. So it has not worked out in his favor. O'Brien has opened up the gap slightly. Sirois is alongside Richie Hearn, whose internet issues, I think, mean that they're very cautious about how much they want to fight each other. Hearn does manage to get the overcut working for him, but they're now 6 seconds behind Michael O'Brien, so it really has cost them time, hand over fist. Into pit lane then comes Aaron Morgan, and no pit limiter in these cars as well, Andrew, so they have to be very careful not to speed down what is a very slow pit lane as well.
Oh, it's so slow coming down pit lane here at Long Beach. I believe it's 35 miles an hour is, I believe, the pit speed here, and it feels even slower than that. You're just crawling down pit lane, and in this car, it's so tempting to just tap the gas and try and get as much as you can. But Aaron Morgan, 7.8 on the pit stop. So wonderful stop from Aaron Morgan. He might just have enough to get by Michael O'Brien here on this pit cycle.
It's going to be close, but the overcut works, and I think maybe short fueling that car, knowing that track position might be key. And with the struggles for Taylor, with the struggles for Razmas, these are vital championship points on offer for the 48 car, who cycles to the lead. Might steal a first career victory from his teammate, who's now hunting him down. 6 seconds back to Richie Hearn and David Sirois. It's these two cars left to scrap it out at the front. Hopefully they won't cost each other too much time. Somehow, David Rodriguez has managed to go to lap 27. Whether that was saving behind Lionel Kalisto, whether we need to get that Lotus 79 back into the inspection area post-race to see if the magic fuel tree that he had in Iowa has made an appearance once more. We'll wait and see, but he peels himself off onto the lane to track him versus Kalisto. As here comes Morgan, here comes O'Brien. They'll cycle back to the race lead. Very close between the two of them. There was an incident, by the way, during the pit cycle. First for Nick de Groot. So it's coming down into turn 1 by himself. A little bit tentative. Oh, Reagan's exiting pit lane, and I think de Groot kind of spooked himself there. Does manage to spin it back around in pretty stylish fashion as well to minimize the time loss. What happened to Ariel Alanis, though? Because we've had another car into our graveyard here in Long Beach. It's coming through turn 6 in towards turn 8 and doesn't even make it to the apex there.
That was a very strange incident from Ariel Alanis. It looks like...
Technical issue?
It has to almost be a technical issue. It looks like he might have just gotten loose over the... No, that has to be a technical issue. He just never corrected there. I think something must have happened with his wheel or something along those lines, and unfortunately that's put Ariel Alanis into the wall and out of this race. But
it sounded like he went off throttle and maybe the pedals died and he was just busy trying to figure out what was going on there and didn't realize that he could maybe get the car and roll it still onto pit road. But that's another day, another car into the garage day done. Means 6 retirements out of our 19 starters. 11 still on the lead lap, but don't think that's going to be how things shake up. Rodriguez, by the way, did manage to get the overcut. He was still 9.4 seconds in the box, so it wasn't a short stop by any means, but does give us an indication of just how valuable it is to be on low fuel at the end of these stints.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that David Rodriguez is an excellent example of how much it pays off to be good on the fuel, and I suppose we shouldn't be surprised at this point that he was the longest car in terms of the stint there. He has done wonders with fuel so many times throughout the year, and it should be unsurprising that he did it once again here. I do want to mention as well, Arjuna, that Bobby Mikes is officially out of the race as well now, so it looks like his car was just too damaged for him to continue on in this race, and he has pulled his car into pit lane as well. Yeah,
and Alanis has called it as well, so Alanis, Mikes, Taylor, Fowler, Jenkins, and Harden, the 6 retirees here in today's race. Again, 19 starters, smallest on the season so far, but of course that's the way that things shake out. Participation tends to die off if you're not in the title hunt or not fighting for your share of the $7,000 in cash and prizes on the line. And of course, when you head to a track as challenging and as demanding as Long Beach, where it's almost required that you put in the requisite practice time to get up to speed, and not just to build speed, but to build comfort as well. and not entirely surprising. While we watch Rodriguez and Callisto, 7th and 8th positions, David Sirwa, after a great qualifying performance and cycling past Razmas on the start into a podium spot, has given that up to Richie Hearn. 2 seconds the gap now between the 70 and the 99. And Hearn was feeling somewhat confident coming into this one, Andrew. I don't know if you were following in the Lionheart Discord community, but Richie Hearn was asking for the contact details for the broadcast booth. I think assuming that he was in a pretty good spot to get a post-race interview with a podium finish here.
And I think that he's proving himself so far in this race that confidence has not been misplaced. It has been a really strong drive from Richie Hearn so far. And he's shown himself not only that he's been able to maintain pace with the leader, but he's even been able to get closer to the leader on a number of occasions. He cut in about 2 seconds before that first pit stop. He's put himself back a little far back from the leader through that battle with David Sirwa on the exit pit lane, but I think that we have not seen the last of Richie Hearn so far in this race, and he might just be there at the end of this one.
And of course, for Richie, one of his career podiums here in the Retro Series came at Road America, so heading into a track where he will be full of confidence, he will be building up that momentum as well, heading out of this race. Just looking up the results for a certain Richie Hearn in his races, both in kart and then in, of course, the IndyCar Series. In 1996, he finished 10th position at the Long Beach Grand Prix. That was for Della Penna Motorsports, I guess it was, back in 1996. 27th in 97, 23rd in 98, and then 11th in 99. So he probably knows what it takes to be quick around here, and I hopefully he gets the podium and we don't put any commentators' curses down on him, because very interested to talk to him post-race, Andrew, to see how this compares to what he saw in the real world.
Absolutely, and this is one of those tracks where it really does take a little bit of insider knowledge to figure out. So having that experience, I'm sure, in kart has helped him master this track just a little bit further. Again, we haven't been here in the Retro Series for 5 seasons now, so it's been a long time for any of these drivers. And so that extra little bit of experience, I'm sure, is paying a little bit of dividends for Richie Hearn right now.
A little bit of a moment there for Inzaldo. This time at least keeps it pointed in the right direction, just a little bit wobbly on the entry. Wibble wobbles his way through the hairpin. He is down 1 lap and had to let pass a number of laps cars. Next up in line will be the heavily damaged number 68 of Mike Razmas. Meanwhile, out front, as we reach the halfway marker of the race, it's Morgan versus O'Brien, the 2 Avatar Order Racing teammates. 0.7 of a second separate them. Bit of a wide entry for O'Brien, but might help him cut down to the apex of the corner and get the power down. Toes himself through, is officially halfway done with this race. It's looking like a 2-horse battle to the checkered flag. Maybe my eyes are playing tricks on me. No, they're not. No, they are not. Look at that. That distinctive front wing damage has now come on to the number 48 as well. Where do you think it is, Andrew? Maybe it's coming through here out of turn 5 and just tapping the outside wall.
Yeah, there are a number of places there you can get a little bit of damage on this car. Another place that it could be is if you cut turn 1 just a little bit too much, or through here in turn 7, if you cut that a little bit too hard, you can just tap the curb. And despite the fact that I've put this car up about as far as I possibly can in the air, it is still possible for the car, if the curb is big enough, to hit it and affect the front of the car just a little bit. So I did what I could to prevent that from happening, but it is possible to affect the front wing of this car just a little bit, even if you don't really hit anything in particular. Morgan
pulling away, 1.2 now. Last time around it was a 6.70 versus an 8.65, so about 0.2 quicker. Trying to get a lap time for Richie Hearn at 12.599, so don't count him out. That's what I'd say right now. Don't count out the number 70 car, the Elite West Motorsports Lotus 79, from closing the gap and pulling up to the battle for the race lead, but it will take a Herculean effort. Not insurmountable gap, though. I think that's to put it mildly. Meanwhile, I wonder if David Rodriguez has given the strategy guide and the form book to Lionel Kalisto, because Kalisto's been doing basically what Rodriguez was doing in that first stint of the race, Andrew. Hanging back. I wonder if saving some fuel, because I think Kalisto knows that he now needs to try and pit around where Rodriguez does, because it's going to be a short stint from the next pit stop to the end of the race. So they do want to make sure they have as little fuel going into that car as humanly possible.
Yeah, Kalisto with the back end stepping out just a little bit through turn 5 there. I think Kalisto's definitely gone to school a little bit. He'll know that he got passed on that last pit cycle there by Rodriguez, so he knows that at this point, if he can't get by Rodriguez on the track really easily, then his best bet is just to save as much fuel as he possibly can, see if he can cut out a couple of laps from that last stint and really try and put the pedal to the metal at that point where that car is just maybe a little bit more suited to his driving style, a little bit happier and a little bit faster. I think that we will see as the run goes on, the moves do become just a little bit easier, primarily because you do have a little bit faster of a lap time in general, but also because the rear tires do get affected and they come off the corner a little bit worse, and it's much easier to make a mistake for some of these drivers.
Working lap 35 in our 64-lap event here on the streets of Long Beach. Don't go anywhere. You're watching RaceSpotTV and coverage of the HyperX Grand Prix of Long Beach. Welcome back to RaceSpotTV. If I can remember to turn our audio back on here in the RaceSpotTV commentary booth. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Alongside is Andrew Kinsella in a race where it's been a Royal Rumble from the start. Lap 1 saw plenty of championship implications. Matt Taylor, the championship leader, getting mixed up in an incident coming through turn number 5. Drama for Mike Razmas as well, but he's recovered, still sitting in a top 5 position, but plenty of work to do. It's the driver that came into this race, 3rd place in the championship, that's currently leading the way. Aaron Morgan, 1.8 seconds clear of his Avatar Order Racing teammate. The two of them, 7 seconds clear of Richie Hearn. Halfway through this race, Andrew, how's it playing out in comparison to what you thought?
Yeah, I think it's been a really entertaining race so far, Arjuna. So Definitely we had all that carnage on lap 1, and it's quieted down just a little bit since then, but we've definitely had some moments that have defined the race. Not just on that lap 1, but definitely that pit cycle where Aaron Morgan was able to get in front of his teammate Michael O'Brien and get that position and get that lead. That's going to be pivotal in this race, I think, because he's definitely started to just stretch it out just a little bit over his teammate. And then obviously Mike Rasmus, his recovery and damage limitation drive so far in 5th place. He had that big moment on that opening lap where he got into it with Chris Reagan through the fountain section. But fortunately for our championship contender, our current 2nd place, potentially 3rd place championship driver after the end of this race, he has been able to limit the damage and is currently circulating in 5th. So definitely a lot of different storylines to follow through this race.
And you'll see that is the number 68 car, started in 3rd position, swarmed by David Sirra on the start. And then Chris Reagan launched it down the inside, heading into this fountain section where Rasmus is coming up to right now. Significant damage that he is now having to deal with. Here's a look at how the live point situation is shaking out. This does factor in our drop weeks. Out of the 18 rounds of the calendar, the lowest 2 points totals get removed from the championship standings. It does mean Aaron Morgan jumps up to 2nd. Mike Rasmus now 7 points adrift of the number 48 car. And Matt Taylor, who is classified in 16th spot, as almost by virtue of the fact that we have a slightly smaller grid than earlier in this season, 29 points. Might not be the lowest number that Matt Taylor has accumulated over the course of the season. We'll try and get our confirmation of that before we wrap things up, but that might actually be one of not one of the 2 drop weeks that gets factored in there. Chris Fowler, another driver with wretched luck so far across of 2021, across all 3 of the Lionheart sanctioned competitions, has dropped behind Michael O'Brien and David Sirra in the battle for 4th in the championship. 8 points separate Sirra and O'Brien as things run. Sirra looking comfortable in 4th. O'Brien still searching for victory. It would be his first victory in the Lionheart Retro Series for him. 16 races into his career in this Lotus 79. So that's a look at the championship standings. Let's talk very briefly about our Sim Experience driver profile, because it is the driver that is currently still out there on track and pursuing at least a finish. 27 starts to Mike Rasmus's career, 23 top 10 finishes. Gives you an indication of how consistent a performer he is. 16 top 5s to boot as well. First victory came back in Gateway short track racing in this Lotus 79, being a crazy 2021 though for Mike Rasmus, who has taken 2 victories, both of them on the road courses, also has 2 pole positions to his names. A very well-rounded driver. But more importantly, Andrew, I love what we're seeing today, which is that mental fortitude to dig deep and never give up.
Absolutely. This is one of the hardest things that a driver can do, is they know that not by virtue of their own driving, but simply by virtue of the damage on their car, that they probably have no shot at winning this race. But at the same time, being a championship caliber driver that Mike Rasmus is, he's putting in a phenomenal drive to limit the damage that he had, and he is doing a great job just lapping around here in 5th position, and this is exactly what his championship hopes needed. Meanwhile, I will confirm that Matt Taylor's 2 drop weeks are 16 points at Phillip Island and 18 points at Homestead, so if in fact he does have 29 points from this race here today, that is not one of his 2 drop weeks.
That's what I was just confirming, as well as what's happened to Nick de Groot. Oh no, another car in the graveyard. The motorsports.com editor, the number 89 machine for factory backed, has gone around. What's happened here? Working his way down East Seaside Way in towards turn 9. Brake as late as you can, and well, braking into the access road, and I think just an indication that he was not enjoying the best of days. He was already down a couple of laps and really struggling, I think, with the balance of this car over the course of the longer run. Does mean now we are down to 12 cars out there and running. 9 of them still on the lead lap. Would not be shocked if we see all bar the top 8 potentially end up 1 lap down, because Chris Reagan is 45 seconds off the race lead, and a lap which takes about 72 seconds to complete. Michael O'Brien has picked up the pace recently. Fastest lap a couple of laps ago at 1:12.254. Last time it was a 1:12.265 in comparison to a 1:12.425 for Morgan, so almost 2/10 quicker. Let's see if things shake up as across the line once more they'll come. Barney the Flagman has a great view of the action. 2:64 this time for Morgan. That's his fastest lap of the race. O'Brien a 6:05, so he's the one who slows this time around.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to watch these two trade lap times back and forth. One lap it's been Aaron Morgan, the next lap it's been Michael O'Brien, but meanwhile in the background is Richie Hearn. He's been also just consistently doing those lap times. He's still 7 seconds back, but he is not letting these leading two Avatar Motorsports cars go. So right now, it's still a two-horse race, but I still wouldn't count out Richie Hearn if something happens, particularly if these two drivers start really battling with each other as O'Brien potentially closes in on Aaron Morgan.
But surely, O'Brien, again, rule number one in racing, never hit your teammate. Surely he's got the memo, Andrew, and he's going to make sure that even if he does get close, he's going to, if there's going to be a move, it better be a clean one. Because he doesn't want to be the car responsible for removing Morgan from championship consideration.
Absolutely, but at the same time, there's so many different ways that things can happen without necessarily there being contact. Like, for instance, you saw with Richie Hearn and David Sirois earlier in this race, where Richie sort of came out right beside David Sirois and, in fact, was blinking a little bit at the same time, and it probably cost both of them about 3 or 4 seconds just through that fountain section. So there's so many different things that can happen over the course of the race that allows time to be lost and won, not necessarily even just contact, but just circumstances bring two cars near the same point on the race, and especially at a place like Long Beach where the concrete walls are so tight to the racetrack and racing line. It's something that can easily happen where you get into a battle and you've lost 2 seconds before you even realize it.
So, question for you, Andrew, with next week the Lionheart IndyCar Series going to the streets of Detroit, Belle Isle or Long Beach? If you had to pick one, where do you want to race?
I prefer Long Beach. I like the really long front stretch and the run into turn one. That being said, Detroit is still a lot of fun to drive. It's not a very easy place to pass in, which I'm sure every driver who's driven it both in the virtual world and the real world can attest to. But for hot lapping, Belle Isle is a lot of fun. But for racing, I would say Long Beach is my preference.
And which one is bumpier? I've always wondered that.
At least on the iRacing scan, it is definitely Detroit is bumpier.
That's what I thought, but always good to get confirmation. Of course, you talk about iRacing scan, maybe a bit of an iRacing curse going on because, of course, it sounds like it's all but confirmed that Belle Isle and its future as an IndyCar venue, and not just IndyCar, of course, but the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Series that goes and runs there, will be moving away from the island, heading to downtown Detroit in what I can only describe as a interesting new proposed configuration for the Detroit Grand Prix. Not sure I'm a fan, but well, I guess the only thing that we can do is wait and see.
Yeah, I would say from a driver's perspective, I'm not as big a fan of the new proposed Detroit Grand Prix, but at the same time, from a fan's perspective, I'm actually pretty optimistic because of just how long some of those straights look to be. So it really does look like there's going to be a lot of passing opportunities at that venue, which is definitely unusual for a street circuit. So I think that it'll actually probably race fairly well, but I don't think as a driver I would enjoy driving it nearly as much as I enjoy driving Belle Isle.
Hopefully it's not like Nashville, which I think the less said about the inaugural, what was it, Music City Grand Prix, the better. But hopefully yes. Nashville's got a brighter future in store for the future years in the NTT IndyCar Series. I did also want to say, since we're talking, or mentioned, the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, shout out to RaceSpot's own Tyler Maxson, who has produced a couple of these Lionheart broadcasts over the course so far of 2021. not just competing in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, where he races with Copeland Motorsports in a Hyundai Veloster TCR machine, making his prototype debut this coming weekend as the Petit Le Mans action goes on as pit stops. That's a bit earlier than I expected for Aaron Morgan, only 19 laps into his run. Not sure what's going on here.
Well, I think, Arjuna, is what you saw is he took that short stop, that 7.8 second stop on that first pit stop, and I think this is where you pay the piper here, is he now has to take a longer second stop and a longer second stint, so this is really an opportunity for Michael O'Brien, and you saw just as we were talking about this, Michael O'Brien just put in the fastest lap of the race on that last lap, so he is really pushing, and this is his opportunity to get himself back by his teammate.
Yeah, this is what O'Brien will want as he gets a little bit loose, but that's par for the course in this Lotus 79, cutting through turn 8. Look at how aggressive he is, all the way to the inside wall and then hanging out the rear tires as he gets back onto the power. Crucially, Aaron Morgan has cycled behind Alex Guyon, so lap traffic for the 48 machine. It's going to be now how about the Avatar Auto Racing driver can carve his way through the 08 machine, find some clean air, and get himself back up to speed.
Oh, and there was something in the background there, Arjuna.
Was there? I think I missed it.
I think that was Lionel Kalisto.
Oh, it is. And he's trying to find a way back onto track. You're going to find out the unfortunate way that, yeah, you're going to have to reset to pit road because you'll find an invisible wall ready to greet you. Let's see what happened here to the 97 car who had worked his way through after starting at the tail end. Already damaged, so clearly coming over turn 5. There's something that's gone on there. Watch here and just ride on board.
He just a little bit too much speed, and the track falls away from you on the exit, so it's so easy to impact that tire barrier. Obviously, in iRacing, that tire barrier is a little bit more substantial than it probably is in real life, but nonetheless, it still probably would have dealt a significant amount of damage, even in real life, to one of these cars. So, unfortunate mistake from Lionel Kalisto, and he wasn't having the best of days, but he was solidly in the top 10, and unfortunately, I think that's going to end his shot at anything close to a decent finish here today.
Yeah, we'll see if he manages to roll himself back out, but on pit road has cycled down to 12th on the timing tower, left-hand side of your screen. Michael O'Brien is on pit lane now. So this is where, for Aaron Morgan, we'll wait and see how this strategy will cycle out. Richie Hearn still out there on track, so he is going to get the undercut. He's going even faster, a 1:12.135. Morgan still no way through, working his way into the final couple of corners. Michael O'Brien is finally in his pit stall. 4 seconds and counting on the time. Watch here, though. Morgan's losing even more time. Guyon's onto pit lane this time, so at least he's being released, but I think Michael O'Brien's going to have this one comfortably.
Yeah, I think that's too little too late for Aaron Morgan. I think that Michael O'Brien has well made up the time that he needs to here. It's going to be close at the exit of pit lane here. The two teammates side by side.
And, well, I was all sorts of wrong. Somehow, Morgan manages to hold on despite having to come in earlier, despite being stuck behind lap traffic. That is crucial, and I'm not sure where that happened because their time on pit lane, Andrew, was identical.
Yeah, well, I think the big thing, Arjuna, was that coming into that cycle, Michael O'Brien was almost 2 seconds behind Aaron Morgan. So if you figure that they were about the same on pit lane, Michael O'Brien made up nearly 2 seconds in less than 3 laps on track. So he had put in a Herculean drive to try and take that top position from Aaron Morgan, but he just, at the end of the day, wasn't able to. But the driver that I have my eye on right now is actually Richie Hearn, because he is putting in lap after lap at very, very high rate of speed.
It was a 1:12.725 for Aaron Morgan last time, as David Sirois now on the pit road. For Richie Hearn, it was a 3:29. So he is going faster. The question is, with what it was about 6.5 second gap between the top two and the 70.
But it was only 5 seconds when O'Brien came into pit lane, and O'Brien came out right behind Aaron Morgan. So Richie has already closed in at least 2 seconds on Aaron Morgan, and he is taking out 4 to 5 tenths a lap right now. So if he can keep going, he might just have a shot at this victory yet.
We'll wait and see. Doesn't come down this time around onto pit lane. Screams across the start-finish line. It's a 1:12.201. Consistency as Trevor Malone is going to pull to the side and let through Morgan. We'll let O'Brien go through too. Does look as though Malone might have a bit of damage, just judging by the way that car responded on the inside of the track. Gap between these two, 7 tenths of a second. If Richie Hearn can't get the jump, Aaron Morgan needs to just hold on for 16 minutes to take a victory here in Long Beach.
It's been quite the drive from Aaron Morgan so far today, Arjuna. He's really done a great job. He did exactly what he needed to do to get in front of his teammate Michael O'Brien on that first pit stop, and did just enough to stay in front of him on this second stop. So it's really been a championship caliber drive from Aaron Morgan, especially knowing that his main rival in the championship, in Matt Taylor, has had some, let's call it, misfortunate circumstances, and another rival in Mike Rasmus says while he's in second place here, he has not come in for his second stop yet, and he will likely finish no better than 5th place. So he's really taken advantage of the opportunity presented him today, as we see Richie Hearn is now on pit lane.
So this is where, get ready to see if Hearn can do anything. It was about 7 seconds apiece for Morgan and O'Brien on pit box itself in terms of fuel. Richie Hearn only needs about 13 laps of fuel to get him to the end, so it should be quicker. It's 6.4, so that's a full second that he'll save just on the lane itself. But where is Morgan? Where is O'Brien? They're coming through across the start-finish line. Where is Hearn? You can't really see him. He is just coming off the limiter. He is close. He is not close enough, but he's got 13 laps to try and have an assault on victory here today.
Yeah, he didn't manage to get in front of him, but he is within sniffing distance now. He's under 4.5 seconds back of this leading duo, and there is crucially traffic in front of both of these drivers here, Arjuna. So this race is far from done, let alone the two Avatar Autosport cars in front. Richie Hearn is still very much in this race.
Working through turn 8. Of course, now you can't afford to make any sort of a mistake. You don't want to trip yourself up and invite Richie Hearn into the mix. He is about 5 seconds back, so he did close a couple of seconds through that cycle. He's just a little bit too far behind, I think, to make anything happen. That's the 53 of Craig Forsyth next up the road. And he's coming down onto pit road, so not going to be a factor in terms of the battle for the race lead. David Rodriguez still yet to pit. It will be lap 25 this time around for him in the number 10 RSR Esport Lotus 79. He's going to have a really short run into his pit box and a really short pit stop itself. Might still be looking at a top 7, if not a top 6 for the number 10 car. I do think potentially going to have to report to the garage area, the inspection area after this to figure out how he was able to go 27 laps on the stint in the first cycle of the race. So once more, it's a 2-horse fight between Morgan and O'Brien. This time around, it's just a little bit closer. We'll wait and see if O'Brien has anything to try and fight with Morgan without upsetting the apple cart, without hurting Morgan's chances at a championship.
Yeah, you can tell Morgan is pressing really hard. There was a couple of times where the back end just stepped out just a little bit on exit, particularly through turn 1 the last time through. And he is really pressing hard to keep Michael O'Brien behind him. I think even though these two are teammates, Michael O'Brien still wants a shot at this win, because he's in his own little battle of his own for the back half of the top 5 in terms of points. And he also absolutely would want some bragging rights as well over his teammates. So I don't think that Michael O'Brien is by any means just going to roll over and let Aaron Morgan have this. He's on the back of Aaron Morgan, and he's not letting him go at this point.
Racing drivers are just innately competitive, no matter what they're doing, whether it be playing a casual game, whether it be racing here on the iRacing service. They want to win. They want to be the best. It will be 10 laps to go next time around, so Just under 20 miles left in this race. Morgan is pushing hard, but he needs to make sure he doesn't come unstuck by himself. We'll take a look at the live point situation as soon as David Rodriguez has pulled himself down onto the pit road. Of course, that will cycle Mike Razmas up into 5th and therefore close the gap between the 48 and the 68 machine in that battle for what is now 2nd in the championship. Even with Taylor's misfortune, 29 points, not even one of the lowest scores that Taylor's had. O'Brien was 0.3 of a second off the rear as Rodriguez onto pit road this time around. If there's going to be a pass, Andrew, how do you set it up if you're Michael O'Brien?
So there's really 2 opportunities here at this track. There's what you're seeing on screen right here into turn 1, and that's very contingent on you getting an excellent run coming out of that hairpin, which is very, very hard to do, particularly as you get really close onto the back of the car in front of you. The other opportunity here is coming off of the backstretch out of turn 8. If you can get through turn 8 better than your competitor, you can really get a run down that backstretch, down East Shoreline, and that is your other opportunity into I believe that's turn 9 there at the end. It's really difficult to find the fortitude to put yourself down the inside there, but those are your really 2 only opportunities to get this pass done.
I'm struggling to see that playing out. I just don't think. I think Morgan has the pace. That's part of it, but I also think that O'Brien needs to be ultra careful. Morgan did make a slight mistake, though, coming through the hairpin, lit up the rear tires, half a second back, and in the draft is Michael O'Brien, searching for his first career Lionheart Retro Series victory. Still a little bit too far behind, though, but he's searching, he's closing. Richie Hearn, 4.5 back. Don't think he's going to be a factor with less than 10 to go.
Yeah, it'll be down to whether or not Aaron Morgan makes the mistake in the right spot, and a big enough mistake, I think. I think that, as you mentioned, as Aaron Morgan gets very close to the wall coming out of turn 5 there, I think, as you mentioned, Michael O'Brien really doesn't want to affect the championship. He does clearly want to win this race, but he also doesn't want to affect the championship, so it's very difficult to wear those 2 hats. So I think it is going to take some kind of mistake from the car of Aaron Morgan in order for O'Brien to really get by. But it'll be interesting to see just how far he pushes Aaron Morgan, because Morgan is coming so close to some of the walls here on the exit of these corners, and that's really where this is going to happen. Is if Aaron Morgan just can't keep those rear tires under him, particularly on corner exit, that's where the advantage is going to come for Michael O'Brien. So I see traits in what Aaron Morgan is doing that potentially, if he wants to, Michael O'Brien might be able to take advantage of.
Update from Trevor Malone, who has also retired his car. Sounds like a bit of a technical issue. Not necessarily fully technical. There may be a bit of that pepcac, as we call it in the IT world. Problem exists between user and keyboard. It sounds like maybe just an issue getting onto the brakes has cost him a chance of finishing this race up in the top 10, so down to just 10 out there on track. Here's a look then at the live point situation. It hasn't changed since the last time that we did look at it, because Razmas is comfortable in 5th. Rodriguez is 7.5 back from the car in 5th. Just a little bit too far behind with just 8 to go, 7 this time around. It means 7 points the gap between Morgan and Razmas. The gap between Taylor and Morgan down to 45 points. Remember, race victory pays out 60 points. The double points finale pays out 120 points. So 180 points, the total available heading out of Long Beach with 2 races left to go. Taylor's still comfortable, but not as comfortable as he was 58 laps ago when we started this race.
Yeah, it definitely could have been a lot worse for Matt Taylor given what happened on the first lap of this race, but at the same time, he's got to be counting his blessings that he has as big of a gap as he does with these few races to go, Arjuna. And the one thing I do want to say is that the wizardry of Rodriguez has paid off once again, and he did get by Alex Guillon. So he is now somehow in 6th position after making his fuel tank once again last just way too long.
Yep, so race control, if you're watching, get ready to have another inspection. Of course, end-of-line penalty after that contact he had at Silverstone. Top 6 finish, given that an end-of-line penalty here is one of the worst, if not the worst place to get an end-of-line penalty across the 2021 campaign. Pretty good fight back, especially given he had to keep his nose clean on those opening laps of the race. It will be 6 to go this time around. Still close between the two teammates out front. Morgan trying to break the draft just very slightly. It's going to take a Herculean effort, but never say never with these Lotus 79s. Anything is possible. And I do wonder, given how bumpy this track is, this is a car, of course, built on ground effect, Andrew, which is where the under tray of the car kind of helps to build aerodynamics by sucking itself to the floor. How unsettled does the car become then over the bumps here at Long Beach?
It's not too bad. It's not as bad as you would think. The model, at least in iRacing, it's not very prone to the porpoising effect that you sometimes get in the real world. When it sort of engages and disengages over the course of the bumps. So the model, at least in iRacing, it's fairly consistent in terms of downforce. So the bumps really are down to how much it upsets the car from a suspension standpoint rather than from an aerodynamic standpoint. So I've in this setup, I've made it so that the car's probably maybe even a little bit too compliant over the bumps. And it does take out a whole bunch of the edge from what they would probably experienced in the real world here in the Lotus 79.
Don't think they're going to be complaining too much about that, though. It doesn't sound like doesn't sound like something where you'd be unhappy about having a little bit more control over the car, I guess.
No, I'm definitely not saying that it's easy. I'm just saying it might be a little bit easier than back in 1979 when they ran here for real.
I'm a much newer fan to, I guess, IndyCar racing in general. But, I'm born in 1994. There's no way I would humanly remember these cars when they were out there and racing. But really, it was when motor racing was more of a gladiator sport. I mean, yes, it had gotten better even by the late 80s, but still very much reliant on your car not breaking down, trusting that your car was going to hold together, especially at some of the more scary places that this car would have run at. I think of the Nordschleife, for example, places like that where there's just as little room for error as there is at a track like Long Beach, but the speeds are so much higher, the danger is so much higher that I really just struggle to comprehend the level of courage it would have taken to get behind the wheel there. Right now, though, across the line, it will be 4 to go. Morgan puts in the fastest lap, and that is crucial. It's a 1:12.052. He's building up that buffer, 8/10 the gap between the top two.
Really solid lap from Aaron Morgan, and he is putting the hammer down. He knows that this is the crucial point in the race. If he can get just a little bit further out over Michael O'Brien, he can sort of break most of the effects of the draft that O'Brien is getting while still feeding him that dirty air. So it's a matter of literal tenths of a second here for these two leaders, where if Morgan can just get that little bit further, that is exactly what he'll need to make it just that little bit more comfortable as the race comes to a close here.
Hopefully, we don't have to wait 5 more years before the Lotus 79s return to Long Beach. Or maybe we'll take them to Belle Isle. I think having a street circuit is just such a unique challenge. Long Beach, I know it's your favorite compared to Detroit. I'm a little bit more partial to Detroit personally. They're both interesting in their own regards and throw up different challenges, but maybe
why not both, Arjuna?
Oh, because the drivers aren't going to be too happy with us. O'Brien ducks
what
below.
A lap from O'Brien.
Yeah, the only driver to have ducked below a 1:12, a 1:11.894 is keeping things interesting. It's also smashing the lap record coming into this race. Yes, we've had several changes to the tire model. Andrew was talking to me before we went on air about how he feels more comfortable building setups for the Lotus 79 as well. Lap record 73.432, so a 1:13.432, almost 1.5 seconds faster is Michael O'Brien. 2 laps to go this time around. He is running out of time. Morgan still wringing out the neck of that Lotus 79.
And I'll tell you, Arjuna, it's been a pleasure to watch these two trade lap times back and forth.
Sorry.
Oh.
David Rodriguez has come unstuck. He'll only lose one position to Alex Guyon, but that's in towards turn number 1.
Yeah, just a mistake from David Rodriguez, and it's a shame because he'd been so clean and done such a good race, and he just gets in a little too deep here. Very smartly, I might add, doesn't try to make that corner, locks up the brakes and stops before he gets into the tires. So he keeps his nose clean, but it does mean that he has seceded that one place to Alex Guyon. But meanwhile, back at the front, we have this battle between these two gladiators, Aaron Morgan and Michael O'Brien, and they have been trading fast laps back and forth, back and forth. It's hard to convey to the viewer how entertaining it is to watch these guys on the screen battle back and forth and see them go one lap faster for one guy, one lap faster for the other guy. But you can tell that neither of them really want to say that this race is over at this point. And Michael O'Brien definitely sees that first win within his grasp, and he is doing everything he can to put the pressure on Aaron Morgan as we come to just one more lap to go here, Arjuna.
And you can't say that there's team orders going on right now, because O'Brien is harassing the rear end of the 48. White flag in the air. 2 miles left to decide the Royal Rumble, the HyperX Grand Prix of Long Beach. It's also crazy to think, Andrew, that Michael O'Brien has put in lap times within 1,000th of a second last time around and this time around. Given how much mental effort it takes to be fast at Long Beach, over the course of 64 laps, these drivers have worked themselves into great points positions. What has just happened, though, to Mike Rasmussen?
Oh my word, it looks like Mike Rasmussen is out of the car right now, and he's thrown it away with 2 laps left to go.
I don't even think he's thrown it away. I think there's technical issues here.
Oh no.
Well, more twists, more turns in the 2021 Lionheart Retro Series. Mike Rasmussen had driven superbly to hold on to a damaged car, to sit up there in the top 5. He came into this race second in the point standings. Things will look different heading out of Long Beach. But out front and in control after that first cycle of pit stops, it took Aaron Morgan 30 races to win his first Lionheart Retro Series race. He's only had to wait 12 since then. He wins once more. He conquers the streets of Long Beach. Aaron Morgan wins the HyperX Grand Prix of Long Beach. Michael O'Brien with a very impressive drive. His best career finish, but ultimately he'll be slightly heartbroken to have not converted and taken a win here today. Richie Hearn, what a drive, as he'll come through across the line to get his podium, his first, I should say second, in his Retro Series career. Last time he got a podium was at Road America. What can he do in 7 days' time then as we head to America's National Park of Speed? Well, drama to the line, but more crucially, it's the championship drama that we have to watch out for, because Rasmussen has dropped to 9th. He might even drop to 10th.
So unfortunate for Mike Rasmussen. He had done everything he could to stay in that race, and then 2 laps to go, he has connection issues that dropped him out of this race. But what can you say about the drive that Aaron Morgan put in today? He did exactly what he needed to do in this race. He qualified well, stayed out of trouble, did exactly what he needed to do on that first pit stop, did the short stop to perfection, got out in front of his teammate and dominated the rest of the way from there. Quite the drive from Aaron Morgan, and this is exactly what he needed to put himself back up into that championship fight.
And we'll get the live point situation once we head into our post-race show. But for now, it's Aaron Morgan's time to celebrate. He's going to burn it down in the hairpin. Well-earned donuts for the Avatar Order Racing number 48. The rest of the cars cycle their way through into the pit lane as they recover after a taxing drive here at Long Beach. 64 laps. We started with 19 contenders. Just 6 finished on the lead lap. Let's go ahead then and take a look at our Carnox race results. Morgan, for the second time this season, comes out on top. It was a win at Mosport to kick things off. He wins once more on the road courses, this time on the streets of Long Beach. Michael O'Brien comes home in second, along with Richie Hearn in third. Great podium drives from all three competitors. David Sirot continues an impressive 2021, along with Alex Guyon for Lavoie Motorsports. Great points in the team championship. David Rodriguez, heartbreak in the closing stages, but after an end-of-line penalty, he'll be pretty delighted to still have gotten a sixth-place finish. Chris Reagan, early contact for him, made contact with the championship leader as well. A recovery drive to 7th, along with Craig Forsyth, 1 lap down. Mike Razmatz, connection issues in the final stages. He finishes down in 9th, with series organizer George Anzaldo completing the top 10. The final car still out there on the track. Then we get to our car graveyard here in Long Beach. Trevor Malone, Lionel Callisto in the last stint of the race came unstuck. Nick DeGroot down in 13th, along with Ariel Alanis, Robert Mikes, Ricky Hardin, Matt Taylor, the championship leader. Still some decent points on offer for Taylor, but the gap has closed to Morgan to Razmatz. Chris Fowler in 18th, Paul Jenkins in 19th, didn't even get past lap number 1. Both the RaceSpotTV Racing teammates pretty frustrated with how things went. Well, time to try and figure out what's going on in the championship story right now, because there is plenty of drama still left to come. But let's dive our way into the HyperX post-race show and dive our way into HyperX Victory Lane, where Aaron Morgan, for the second time in 2021, is standing by. And Aaron, congratulations on winning and conquering the streets of Long Beach. Talk to us, though, about the pit strategy, because that's how you found yourself out in front after that first cycle of stops.
Yeah, I knew that I wanted to do something similar to Mosport, where I needed to take less fuel on the first stop, and then obviously I'd have to take more on the second, but the lower fuel could just help me with the pace. I also noticed that George was right in front of us, and when Michael, he's my teammate, he told me he was pitting that lap, I thought immediately, like, oh man, this is going to be good for me, because he could get held up, and he got held up entering the pits, and it worked perfectly.
And talk to us then about that battle between you guys in the final stages, because you were trading the lap times back and forth. Michael was able to put in a 1:11.894, just an incredible lap time. How nervous were you? We did see you were still pushing the limits all the way to the very end.
I was pretty nervous, but it's weird. I normally have butterflies when I come into these races, like every single time, but for some reason tonight I just didn't. And I don't know. I just held together. I was just honestly trying not to hit the wall everywhere, and I think me holding back just a little made me not overdrive the car like I was in the practice sessions and races, and my pace was just way better than any night previously.
And well, that's a good sign. Heading to Road America next time out, the gap for the championship has come down. I know you're probably slightly disappointed in one regard to see your teammate Matt Taylor come unstuck on lap number 1. Also slightly happy that the championship gap is at least closed. How are you feeling heading to Road America? That's going to be a very different sort of a race to what we saw today.
I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, I think it's really good for me to get the points back. That's just what I needed. I hate to hope for a teammate to have problems like, you're saying, but it's what I needed. Road America is a track I love, but we'll have to see how it is. With this tire model, I'm so up and down since the change. Silverstone, I was good from the start. I spent all the preparation prior to the actual race just struggling this week. I don't know what it's going to be like at Road America, but hopefully it's something more like Silverstone where I'm more confident and I just don't, I can actually qualify like today. Then I'll be in a good spot.
Well, you don't have long to wait, and I'm sure the practice is already going to be commencing shortly, because 7 days from now we will be in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin for the penultimate round in our 2021 campaign. Congratulations on the victory, Aaron, and I'm sure you'll have some well-earned celebrations tonight.
Thank you so much.
So that is Aaron Morgan in HyperX Victory Lane. And now from pole position to second in the final race results, Michael O'Brien, Aaron Morgan's teammate, is standing by with Andrew Kinsella.
Well, Michael, you started in P1, you finished P2, right behind your teammate. Describe that race for me.
Oh man, that was a great race. I thought I'd be able to pull a bit more of a gap at the start, but Aaron was right on me pretty much the whole way. Caught a bit of traffic going into the pits and took a little bit too much fuel, so Aaron was able to jump me coming out of the pits, and that was about it really. Just hang on to Aaron, try and put the pressure on, and hope you made a mistake.
Now, you fell about 2.5 seconds back through the middle portion of that race, but when you came out of that final pit stop, you were right on Aaron's tail. Were you looking at all to get by, or were you just sort of content to stay in second? Because it sure looked from here like you were putting the pressure on your teammate.
I was definitely looking to pass. I was pushing very, very hard at the end there. I know Aaron had a championship, but P2 would have been good for him as well. So, no, I wanted to win.
Yeah, it definitely was entertaining to watch the two of you trade fastest laps there throughout the last stint. Now, looking forward towards the next couple of weeks, first of all, we have Road America. How are you feeling about Road America, and will we see you up near the front of the grid again there?
I hope so. Not one of my best tracks, as you well know. But yeah, Road America's... I'm not super fast there, but I should be somewhere near the front, hopefully.
And then finally, looking towards that finale at Auto Club, do you think that you have a good shot to get maybe that P4 secured in this championship, or how do you see the last race playing out for you there?
I think with the double points, anything could happen, and yeah, Auto Club, who knows what'll happen there. It'll be what it'll be.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michael and Arjuna. Great drive, I think, today from Michael. He really showed a lot of pace, and he was really putting the pressure on his teammate, but in the end came up just a little bit short. But I believe you're standing by with our P3 winner now.
It is Richie Hearn indeed, the first time we've had the privilege of talking to Richie so far in 2021. Richie, you had a great pole position at Phillip Island, but you haven't had the best of luck so far in 2021. I know you were confident coming into this one. How relieved are you to finally be on the podium once more? It's been a full year since you've been on a podium here in the Retro Series.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We got you loud and clear.
All right, yeah, I'm pretty pleased about that one. It's a difficult track, but I always love the street courses, and when I started practicing, that felt pretty good, and really it's just a matter of just kind of getting through the start and keeping it clean. And I had pretty good pace, not as much as Aaron and Michael, but man, yeah, going off what your comment was, it's been a year since I've been on the podium, and Phillip Island, kind of messed up a little bit there, and it was fast but didn't do it, and I'm happy. I'm very, very happy.
And I do have to ask you, Richie, since you didn't just race once here in the real world, but multiple races back in kart. How does it compare being here in the Lotus 79, feeling the bumps? How close do you feel like you're racing a real race car here on iRacing?
It's very, very real. I would actually, the IndyCar is a little bit different. I would probably put it more to when I raced the Atlantic car there. This car handles a lot like that, where you kind of slide it around and use the under tray to help you out, and just the proximity to the walls and the realism of it, it really kind of brings me back to my days, and that's why it's so much fun. Belle Isle's the same way. It's just like it.
And so now, next up, it's Road America, the place where you took your previous podium. Momentum's on your side, and finally, for the first time this year, momentum is on your side. How are you feeling about closing this year off? First at Road America, but then a double points finale where it's going to be high-speed, adrenaline-filled, wheel-to-wheel action at Auto Club.
Yeah, I ran good at Road America last year. I finished third, so I'm going to get on soon and practice and see how I feel. I feel like this year, compared to last year, I've got a little bit better handle on how to drive the car fast. Unfortunately, on the ovals, my internet connection's a little bit sketchy, so I usually just start in the back and just try to finish. I don't want to be that guy blinking all over the place, so I really don't look at the ovals as much as an opportunity. But Road America definitely probably my last chance to finish it out strong this year.
Well, I'll tell you, Richie, I know you had made some comments about Starlink. Don't hold your breath with that, because I had a broadcast with someone earlier this week, and he was having some interesting internet issues. But you still managed to have a great race. There was some great fighting between you and David Sirro on the pit exit, where you may have tripped over each other a little bit, but showed each other enough respect, left each other enough space. Great to have you on the podium, Richie, and good luck for the rest of this year.
Thank you very much. You guys do an awesome job, and hopefully I'll be back next time.
That's for sure. We hope that we get to talk to a driver that knows what it's like to pedal a car in the real world. Clearly enjoys his time here on the iRacing service as well. But Andrew, Great race. Yes, it's a little bit slow when you only have 10 cars, 9 cars who actually finish the race, but ultimately it's a race in which championships have really been mixed up. Let's take a look at these point standings before we start to close things out here and wrap things up from the streets of Long Beach. It is closed up. The gap between Morgan and Razmas has opened up to 15 points. So Razmas has lost another 8 compared to a top 5 finish. So maybe not as painful as he would have hoped, but he is now almost a full race victory off the championship leader.
Yeah, that was such a painful experience for Mike Rasmus, but at the front, Aaron Morgan, he did exactly what he needed to do. And you say it was a little bit of a slow race, but I really don't think so, Arjuna. I think Michael O'Brien, Aaron Morgan, they did a great job, and you can see that in the interval at the end of the race. Only 0.8 of a second separated the two top competitors after 64 laps at a street circuit at Long Beach. That says all you need to know about just how competitive the top of this field is. Yes, we didn't have as many people finish at the top or finish throughout the field, but at the top, that level of talent is right there, and it was a fascinating race to watch. So I'm so excited to see what these drivers do in 1 week's time at Road America, and there's going to be a huge amount of momentum on Aaron Morgan's side as he chases down Matt Taylor for that championship.
I thought coming into this race it would be an evening where Taylor would extend the lead, really solidify the hold that he's got on the championship, but it comes down to 2 final races. Double points on offer in Auto Club. That is going to be a thriller. High speed, adrenaline filled, wheel to wheel, white knuckle racing. That is what Auto Club delivers. Think back to what we saw at Pocono, at Indianapolis, even Michigan most recently, the last time we went oval racing in this Lotus 79. But with that said, it is time to wrap things up here on RaceSpotTV in what has been an exciting round 16 of the 2021 Lionheart Retro Series. Before we say goodbye, we'd like to thank the partners that make all this possible. The Sim Experience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, bringing more realism to your racing. For more information on the entire Sim Experience ecosystem, visit simexperience.com. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders. For sim racers, the Butt Kicker Gamer 2 or Simulation Kit adds the missing driver-to-car connection, bringing more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LION2021 for 20% off all orders. Minus 273 is the premier name in carding glove. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a card or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to use the promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than the DMLC Racing channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year, Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing channel on YouTube and like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing channel. And to learn more about the various partners that make all this happen, to learn more about the three competitions the Lionheart sanctioning body puts on, visit LionheartRacingSeries.com, and don't forget also you can learn more and follow the latest news and comings and goings in the Lionheart Racing Series by following them on social media. ESTV has you covered for your esports needs. Follow them and catch the action live on their services. RaceSpotTV has your sim racing needs covered, so don't forget to subscribe to us. Hit that red button and the bell next to it to get notified every single time we go live with a great sim racing series that we get to cover. It's a bumper week in Lionheart action coming up. On Monday, the Lionheart Speedway Series heads to Kansas. Then on Wednesday, the Lionheart IndyCar Series goes racing on the streets of Belle Isle. And we'll be back in action in 7 days' time with the Lotus 79s as we head to America's National Park of Speed. All of that live on RaceSpotTV. But for now, on behalf of the team behind RaceSpot, for Andrew Kinsella, my co-commentator, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. Congratulations to Aaron Morger, survivor in the streets of Long Beach, winner of the HyperX Grand Prix of Long Beach.